What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Box Out Boys podcast. We're the NBA podcast of the people, your home for lukewarm takes and substandard analysis. I'm Titus Two Shots Dominguez, and with me tonight, it's Chris, the Stats Man Gorman. Hit him with the stats, Chris.
Hey. So I just learned this recently that the defensive 3 seconds rule was not implemented until 2001,
Fun
which
stat.
I think is very valuable considering our discussion for today.
Yes, that is definitely going to be a hot topic of tonight's pod. And he's keeping that lawn green, spring green. It's a lawn boss, Joe McCroskey. Get that, Joe.
I was trying to think of a fun Michael Jordan thing to shout, and then I blanked. I was about to say from North Carolina, and then
there you go. It's all right. Joey, he's visibly. If you're not, if you're on watching the YouTube
already,
he's visibly nervous for tonight. We kind of ganged up on him on this one. Well, we got a fun show for you guys tonight. Probably one main topic here tonight. We may get to some other stuff at the end, but we'll see what time allows for. But unless you're living under a rock or already doing a self-imposed ban of TikTok because the government might ban it, who knows?
China.
You have seen the "we done with the 90s, bro" trend going around. Everybody's talking about it. People are watching 90s games and just roasting them. So, you know what? What I figured is I said, hey, look, we are the Box Out Boys. We do our own research on this podcast. Box Out Boys Investigates. What we did is we each went and watched a game from the 80s, 90s era of basketball, and we have our own thoughts. Is the 90s trash? Is it as good as the current era? Who knows? The debate begins. Let's start with our boy Chris. He went and watched the oldest game of the group. Chris, which game did you watch? And then let's give us some initial thoughts and breakdown.
So I took a game that happened on January 26, 1986 against the Philadelphia 76ers at the Boston Celtics.
Before
this game's very important in my heart. And it should be in ours because the 1986 Celtics are considered one of the top 5 teams of all time. Larry Bird, Larry Legend is in this game. I love me some Larry Bird content lately. So I wanted to talk about this game real quick. Philadelphia 76ers, for reference, have Maurice Cheek starting with Charles Barkley, Moses Malone, Julius Erving, and Bobby Jones. Boston Celtics, 86 Celtics, considered, again, one of the greatest teams of all time. Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish, and Scott Wedman. But Bill Walton is the 6th man off the bench. Pretty sure he won 6th man of the year that year. Key highlights from this game that I kind of want to discuss is the fact that there were 7 3-pointers attempted the entire game. 5 by Larry Bird, 3 made by Larry Bird. Barkley, who famously never practiced threes, shot 2 in this game. So it's just watching this basketball. I think the main thing that really called out for me was the fact that a lot of guys would stand around stopping and hold the ball over their head like they're doing an out of bounds inbound in a soccer match, right? And just looking for someone to cut, even though there's already 6 guys in the paint, because you have as many other guys down there as you want. So Robert Parrish was highly illustrated in this game. I know Robert Parrish being with one of the 90s Bulls teams, so maybe he was really good in this era. I don't know. But he was getting a lot of praise in this game. It was kind of weird. Larry Bird, the final score of this game was 105-103. So a standard score you would see today.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
It was fine. And then another call out I wanted to make with this is the number of so people complain about free throws today, right? How we have a ridiculous free throw problem. I don't know if this is an outlier. Maybe I should go back to really dig in, but there were 63 free throws done, 31 by the 76ers, 32 by the Celtics in this game. For reference,
that's just
I compared this. I wanted to compare this to the game with the Milwaukee Bucks had against the Phoenix Suns on Sunday with Bobby Portis going without Giannis. Bobby Portis scored 30. It was 140-129. There were 30 free throws total between those two teams. I'm talking a lot here, so I want to get your guys' initial thoughts on compared to what your games are. Is this kind of the same as you guys had as well? It's just shocking to me. The number of free throws was really surprising.
That's shocking.
Everything else was kind of what I was expecting.
How many did you have? 68?
31 and 32, so 63 total. I mean, they made they made 51.
Damn.
Great. Or 80%.
Great percentages.
Both teams.
These guys are shooters. True shooting percentage through the roof.
From the line, when nobody's on them and they're on the line, yeah, they're fantastic.
They're fantastic. Well, Joey, how about let's do this? Chris just kind of gave his initial thoughts on the game. Let's give your initial thoughts, and we can kind of go double back and maybe see some more specific things that we saw. Joey, your initial thoughts on your game. Which game did you watch, and kind of like your main takeaways?
Yeah, I watched game 1 of the finals from June 2nd of 1991. It was my Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Yes, they're my Chicago Bulls now. I'm taking ownership of the group of them.
You can
no longer.
It's been yours for a little while.
Yeah, I think nobody's arguing here, bro.
Okay, I'm claiming it. I'm planting the flag.
You can have them.
Oh,
you can have them franchises.
Oh, you can have them franchises. Number 1
pick, the Bulls.
91 game 1, Lakers against Bulls. Lakers won this game 93-91. Starting lineup for the Lakers in this game was James Worthy, Magic Johnson, Vlade Divac.
Yeah, he's solid.
Sam Perkins and Byron Scott.
Hall of Famers.
Bulls ran out Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, and Johnny Paxson.
A couple guys I won't be playing today, but go ahead.
Just a couple.
Just the two.
Just the bottom 3.
Bottom 3, yeah, I think you're right.
Initial
thoughts.
I wrote down some initial stats, kind of similar to Chris. There were 6 3-pointers made in my game.
Damn.
Bulls went 1 of 7. Michael Jordan made 1 shot. He made the 1 3-pointer. Lakers went 5 of 10. Magic Johnson had 2, and Vlade Divac had 3.
Damn.
I quickly looked up the free throws just because, Chris, you did 52 free throws in this game, 34 for the Lakers, 18 for the Bulls. Lakers went 28 of 34, Bulls 14 of 18, 42 of 52 overall, another 80.7%. So 80% seems to be the mark for
back then, man.
Yeah,
for the era here. Leading scorer in this game, Michael Jordan had 36, 6 rebounds, 12 assists. Magic Johnson was not the leading scorer. James Worthy and Sam Perkins each had 22 points. Magic Johnson had a triple-double, though, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. My other big note I found here was very, very small rotations. Not a lot of guys playing. And the minutes for the top players on the team were extremely, extremely heavy. It was pretty much all or nothing. And after guys you could name off the top of your head, the names pretty much disappeared into oblivion. People we've never heard of again.
Like Dickie Simpkins?
Sure. Will Purdue?
Everyone knows about Will Purdue.
We only know about him because he still does media stuff.
He's getting hits on the media.
Do you think you could name the other 3 guys that came off the bench for the Bulls? Will Purdue?
Wait, was Dickie one of them?
No.
Okay.
Stacey King?
No. Stacey King was no.
He wasn't in 91. All right.
There's one name on here for sure you'll get.
It's the point guard.
BJ Armstrong?
BJ Armstrong. Yeah. Cliff Livingston.
Oh, Cliff Livingston. Yeah, I could have got that.
Had 20 minutes, and Craig Hodges had 13 minutes.
Craig Hodges. Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't he an announcer
Assassin.
or some media guy today? Yeah.
The Lakers ran out AC Green. Terry Teagle.
Terry Teagle, that's a name.
And Larry Drew.
The Drew League, man.
He started the Drew League. No, I'm just kidding.
I believe he is the one that started the Drew League.
But yeah, same kind of thoughts as Chris off the initial bat. A lot of free throws, no 3-pointers, and a lot of minutes from names.
I'm surprised you chose that game, Joey. What made you? Because you knew the Bulls lost that game. So why didn't you just go game 2?
I mean, I knew if I would have thought about it for a while, but I just kind of I Googled or I YouTube, 90s full NBA games. And I was kind of scrolling, and this one popped up, and it didn't have the final score in the thing. And I was like, you know what? I don't remember what it was, so I'm going to watch it as if I'm watching it for the first time.
Yeah,
I was 2 years old when this game happened, so I don't have any sort of recollection of how it went down and what it looked like. One other thing I did notice, and this is completely unrelated to basketball, scorer tables that are like literally the entire length of the floor up until the benches for the players need to come back, because that is so much better than having random people sitting on the sidelines eating and drinking and taking selfies the whole time.
Up.
But having like a 40-foot freaking billboard, fantastic.
Pretty good. All right, the game I watched, the Game 6 Utah Jazz 98 finals. Jordan's last game as a Bull. Decision process kind of similar to you, Joey. I have the championship DVDs, 1 through 6. I got a box set, and I knew that there was some 90s games on there, like full games from the finals. So I just opened it up. I took a look at it, and I saw 98 Game 6, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just fire that one up. I kind of knew the ending. Obviously, I think a lot of Bulls fans know that ending. But I was like,
DVDs. Look at you, man.
DVDs. Hey, I figured if I'm going 90s, I might as well go full 90s and pop in a DVD.
They have a director's cut on there?
It's just the raw footage.
Sweet.
I definitely want to ask you guys about like the broadcast, because the broadcast was super interesting to me. Obviously, this is sort of at the end of Jordan's reign and kind of his career. So he was definitely like getting his flowers during the broadcast, but it was, they kind of spun the story compellingly, which was nice. The first note that I have written down, I just kind of stream of thought wrote notes down throughout the entire game. The first note that I have is Stockton is tiny. Stockton is tiny.
Stockton, yeah.
Yeah. That was the first note I had, but just general thoughts on the game. I think maybe the wildest thing that I came across was this illegal defense that Chris noted that didn't change till 2001. I did not know this was a thing until this 90s. We know what the 90s trend started. The illegal defense was real. The Bulls got called for it 3 times in the first quarter. Illegal defense. I think there was, there was like, I forget, there was 6 or 7 illegal defenses the entire game. It was actually pretty crazy. And then just the floor spacing was probably the thing that stuck out to me. I know I sent you guys some videos and pictures in the group chat, but just how bunched up everybody was, and like the way the 3-point shooters were used. So if you aren't familiar with this illegal defense, what it means is that if you're the person you're guarding is above the 3-point line, you couldn't be below the free throw line. So what ends up happening is that the Jazz would send 3 guys above the 3-point line, and 3 guys would have to basically stay right there while Karl Malone would kind of work and into the post, and vice versa on the other side, Jordan or Harper or Pippen or whoever. And that was kind of the weirdest thing for me. That 3-point shooting wasn't necessarily used the way it's used today, as like spacing the floor and getting space for guys to kind of cut and drive. It was used primarily just so that defenders couldn't double team their primary post player. And the other thing I noted is that basically every bit of offense was through the post. At least in this game that I watched, everything was throw it in, even if it was a guard, even if it was Scotty or Michael or Stockton or Hornacek, they posted their guy up, which was crazy to me. So it was pretty wild.
Dantley? Was Adrian Dantley on?
I don't think Dantley was in that one. No, okay. That was a little bit later on, I think. But yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. And then the other thing I think I noticed was how many people actually couldn't score that were on the floor at a given time for each team. Rodman didn't start, which I thought was surprising, because I think you think of a big 3, with Scotty, Michael, and Jordan, or Rodman, but Rodman didn't start, came off the bench, and that was probably my hottest take, is that he would not even see the floor in today's game, because he basically did nothing else besides defend and rebound. And in any game now, he would just be like, all right, yeah, well, double off him.
It's like a half a Draymond Green.
Forget about him.
No, it's not even. I'm going to bring up a point about Draymond Green.
That's why isn't Draymond Rodman, but with a 3-pointer?
Well, as I said, Rodman's like half of Draymond Green. Like
he's not even half of Draymond Green.
But,
no, it's like
33% because he's.
No, I think Rodman. I like, that was maybe my hottest take of the whole thing. I'm like, Rodman would not even play today. There's just no way. So he hit a shot in the game, a 20-footer. As he's running back on defense, he's shrugging his shoulders and saying, "Who knew? Who knew?" to everybody on the court. And the broadcast is like, even Rodman surprised himself with that one. Like, he knew he wasn't going to score. Like, he wasn't there to shoot the ball or anything. And that to me is crazy. But that was the game I saw. So All right, back to you, Chris. Anything kind of you noticed as far as structure of the game, like kind of similar to that kind of stuff that stuck out to you, and differences between maybe the play?
You know what was structure-wise, it was all post. Even in the 86, it was all about the post. Robert Parrish was getting posted up every single possession. The announcers commented on Bill Walton being tired because he had to play so much. The guy played 25 minutes. I understand he had bad feet, bad knees. 25 minutes is what you play with bad feet, bad knees.
I want to bring that up too.
That's how it is. So they kept bringing that up the entire game. Barkley, who is 6'4", right?
Yeah,
300 pounds, whatever. Had some brutal post moves. Like, I get it. You get these guys play in the post, but they don't do any. Like,
they don't do anything.
They don't do any Olajuwon kind of stuff. They just kind of back them up and then throw it up, hoping it goes in. If they don't, so many offensive. Barkley had 9 offensive rebounds. No, sorry, he ended up with 11. The announcer said 9 at one point. I'm seeing 11 here.
The round mound.
11 offensive rebounds.
They had 20 total. And offensive. Look up our offensive rebounds for you guys. If you 15 for the Celtics and 20 for the Sixers. I think O boards. And then in the game I'm comparing it to, which is the Suns Bucks, 7 and 10 between the Suns and the Bucks. 17. So less than half of the amount of offensive rebounds in today's game than there were back then. So more free throws, more. It was just all because they're inside, they're banging each other. Pause. And then drawing fouls and getting to the line. So
I only had 5 offensive rebounds in my game for the Bulls.
So, okay, so maybe this was an anomaly.
They were lighting it up. That was so. This is a funny note. I had. Sorry, Joey. Say what you had again.
I had 6 for the Lakers, 9 for the Bulls offensive rebounds.
Okay, so in the 80s they really couldn't shoot. The 90s. That's why people thought the 90s were
could have been this game too, because Moses and Barkley and
just bricklayers.
Bodies.
So a couple random notes. One of the things I do want to ask you guys about was the broadcast. So obviously, the broadcast that I had was, the broadcast of the era. So they were kind of talking about what was going on. So I had a couple of notes. Let me find them. All right. So the score was 43-45 with a minute left to go in the half. The announcers, quote, "This game is becoming a higher scoring game than we thought." At 43-45. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's great.
They were like, wow, this is a high scoring game for this series. It ended up being 49-45 at the half. That was something that was pretty crazy to me. Anything like that come across in your guys' broadcast where you like kind of laughed or chuckled at something?
I laughed. The very first play of the game, the Lakers went into the post to Vlade Divac, and they said both teams are going to look to establish the post game very early on here.
Yeah.
And by establish, they mean all we're going to do for the entirety of the 48 minutes is play a post game, except when we happen to get out in transition. Other than that, we're going to give the ball to Bill Cartwright at 6 seconds left in the shot clock, or Vlade Divac with 6 seconds left in the shot clock. I also enjoyed that they, after halftime, the Bulls came out and did some like full court pressure. So off the inbounds, right, they were up on the ball, and there were almost a couple 10-second violations. Funny, it used to be 10 seconds, right now it's 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Couple 10-second violations, and the announcers were completely up in arms that the Lakers were getting into, quote, their half-court sets with only like 12 seconds left in the shot clock. And again, I found that very amusing because the half-court set was Magic Johnson standing above the three-point line, dribbling and pointing for another 4 seconds, and then Vlade Divac would get in front of Bill Cartwright, and then they would throw him the ball, and then he would bang his man down a few times, throw up some really awkward looking hook shot, and then everybody would scramble as fast as they could to get the rebound because, as Titus mentioned, they were all above the free throw line, and then they would all come flying in, and it was like a tip drill of who could get it. But it was interesting because there was like this really strong belief in like this is the way, right? And Jordan would get out on a fast break, and Pippen would hit him with an assist, and he would throw down a dunk, and it was like the greatest thing had ever happened, right? It was like the best play of all time had ever happened, and like the amount of times that we see, that happen in today's game is just, it's every couple plays, right? Speed is so much crazy. Like, and they talk about pace, right? And like, hey, the pace of the 90s actually wasn't that far off of the pace from today's game if you look at the actual like pace stats. But it's because the shots were so bad and the ball was so sloppy that like the pace was sometimes just frantic because guys didn't know what they were doing, and there was an actual like set plays being run. It was just kind of like
post up and
post up and go, and if you didn't work, well then you try and get out as fast as you can because you can't play defense and if you don't go on transition.
Because that's something I have in my notes too. Is it's just very chaotic and sloppy early, especially early. So it was just a lot. And another note I had was the physicality that people talk about is kind of BS because it's just guys falling off all over the floor because they don't know what to do or can't handle the ball. So they were like diving for stuff because there was a lot of loose balls. So it looks physical. Like it looks like, I mean, these guys were on the floor. They were getting, scraping knees. It's like, but it's because they were just losing the ball, dude. It wasn't. They smoked the layup. It wasn't that kind of stuff.
There were a lot of missed layups.
So I did have a Jordan smoke the layup moment in my game, which if you guys aren't familiar with the 90s thing, that's one of the catchphrases, smoke the layup. Jordan was coming from the right baseline, driving into the paint. He goes up, and it's kind of funny because the front of the rim is completely clear, but he can't put it in his left hand. You can see like he puts it to his left hand and puts it back and then tries like some sort of acrobatic flip shot with his right off the glass, which is, right up against the glass. And he whiffs it. It goes, way over the rim and misses it. And I kind of looked at that and I was like, there's that no left thing that people were talking about in the thing. Like if he just puts it in his left hand, like Kyrie does, and floats it from 20 feet to beat the Nuggets the other day.
Defending champs.
It's an easy layup. He probably could even have dunked it if he, puts it in his left hand, but you could just see the comfort level with switching hands just isn't there with those 90s players. And he puts it back in his right hand, tries an acrobatic play and it doesn't go well. That was definitely something I saw. Kind of on my point of like Rodman not being or being played off the floor. At one point in the broadcast, they talk about Rodman being a 55% free throw shooter, and at no point do the Jazz institute any kind of hack a Rodman. Like it's a. Well,
it didn't really happen until Hack-a-Shaq, right?
Yeah,
Pop kind of invented that.
Rodman had to shoot 2 free throws late. He goes 1 for 2 when this happened, and the first one he didn't even attempt. He literally just chucked it up at the rim, like. He made 0 attempt at it, and the announcers
imagine how.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You're a professional athlete,
yeah. You're a professional athlete, professional basketball. I know there he is.
Let me just get him in the screen there.
And like he kind of drifts off the lane, is like laughing, and they're telling him like he's got to focus and hit these because these are crucial things. And at no point did the Jazz just go, all right, anytime he touches the ball, just foul him. And that's like it was crazy because like this guy would just be off the court today because they would like. You couldn't have that jeopardy.
I think I'm starting to believe you in the. Yeah, he can't play today. He genuinely can't. Like
he genuinely can't play.
That's a fun pop toy.
Yeah, like that is cool.
He had rainbow hair, Titus. Yeah. He had rainbow hair. Dude.
Yeah, and it looked great. He just couldn't play basketball. But like to Joey's point, like where the Draymond, he's Draymond, half of Draymond, whatever. So my game to compare, I ended up watching the 2016 Game 7. Warriors Cavs. That's why I watched. And I ended up just watching the first quarter of it because at that point I was like, all right, this is so comically better. Draymond at multiple times is bringing the ball up the court. He's their point guard for multiple possessions. So I'm thinking of Malone and Rodman. This is right off of what I've just watched. I'm like, there's at no point where those guys bringing the ball up. And then all of those guys, it's face up moves to the basket. So Draymond at one point faces up from the 3-point line and dribble drive penetration and crosses his guy up, gets to the basket. I forget exactly how the play ended if he makes a pass or scores a basket. But that's not something that Malone was doing, and certainly was something Rodman wasn't doing. And then he hits a 3, so he's a threat from deep. Kind of one of the things Chris talked about on our TikTok channel is Draymond being better than or scoring more threes than Bird. Or passing him on the all-time list. And it's pretty crazy when you see it because you're like, oh, okay, well, that's their 4. And he's doing that now. And in the 90s, like those guys they just weren't doing that. And it's very different. Anything else kind of jump out to you guys as far as maybe some of that narrative you guys saw with like the physicality? Go ahead,
I want to go back to the physicality thing. I noticed like on a lot of the transition, or like if Jordan would decide to actually cut to the basket, you know, Pippen got like a double team because he fell below that free throw line. Everybody talks right about these guys getting like hacked at the rim and stuff. And this was 91. And like all you would see from the centers and the Lakers, the forwards, was they were jumping literally straight up, like two hands. It was almost like the
verticality
net kind of thing when he just like jumps to distract a guy from a 3-pointer, right? It was just like two hands up in the air, jump straight up, and that was it. And like that doesn't happen. Like there were a lot of free throws, but I feel like the fouls that were called in the free throws were kind of like, you know, not ticky-tacky, but like a lot of them were not like hard contact.
Yeah.
For the era, you know, that was supposedly defined by this physicality, it was like guys get fouled a lot harder going to the rim today. Like, you know, someone like a Jordan, like LeBron gets, I mean, guys go after him, right? Like, because you know that if you don't get after him, he's going to throw it down your head and get the N1. So it's like you got to go out there and get it. So it was kind of interesting to me. I actually noticed that as I was watching, like, these guys are going straight up, and then I guess they're big. I mean, they're bigger than guys today. And I guess in essence, like, they're just kind of like unathletic, large people. So like you would kind of have to adjust. Like there were a lot of, you know, bring the ball down and go around, or Pippen kind of like, you know, pushing a guy off and kind of putting his arm out and throwing up like a, you know, kind of hook floater kind of looking thing. I don't even know what you would call it, but like that doesn't happen today. Like guys go up and they're going to either dunk it on your head, as we've seen over the past like 3 days, or someone's going to wrap them up or, you know, lay them out. And it was kind of weird. Like, hey, this is the physicality era, and it just didn't
translate.
I didn't get that vibe. Again, I watched one game.
Yeah,
right?
Great
game one of the finals. So
did Jordan ever give a player a concussion because of a dunk? Has that happened?
Did he give him a concussion?
Is that gonna talk about enough?
Ant gave him well, no, it wasn't a concussion. Didn't he? He went to concussion protocol.
Left the game.
Yeah.
Concussion
he
protocol.
Got a bruised cheekbone is what I heard, and then dislocated finger.
Ego?
It's insane. John Collins, he won't come back from that. It's like Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight was a pretty good player, you know, until John Jordan, which I think was a little more unfair because the size difference. This is the opposite. John Collins ain't coming back, man.
That was a funny thing. Sorry. You bring up like the timing of that dunk. If you guys haven't seen that dunk of Ant on John Collins, it is ridiculous. Jordan-esque is the only way you can put it. Dominique-esque.
Yeah. Vince Carter.
You know, but that guy, is he a top 5 player in the league?
Edwards? No.
And that's what I mean. That's kind of like the point of the eras, is like that guy who's doing stuff that guys like Jordan, the top guys of that era, did. And yet he's a great player. He's maybe going to be the face of the next, 10 years. But currently he's not a top 5 player. And that's crazy. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
I was thinking, I'm like, Joey, are you kind of agreeing with us on the 90s thing? Because I don't even know, like, how can you? I'm trying to find the opposite argument on this. Who can say the 90s was great basketball? Like, it was a different era. I think that's the only argument left. On it.
I think you're spot on, and I think the only thing that I would probably get stuck on is the argument of saying some of these players wouldn't translate to the current era because of what am I trying to say? I guess like if you took the 90s teams and put them in today's era as they were, no adjustments made, like, they somehow,
time travel
on the clock, time travel. There you go. Yes. Like the Warriors, the Lakers,
North Carolina would beat them.
I don't know about that.
That's a troll job.
The one seed North Carolina?
Yeah, the number one seed.
Yeah. They're getting beat. I think
Edie would be good. Yeah, Edie would be good in the 90s. Are you kidding me?
Kind of
So he's probably more skilled than any other big man in that era.
Yeah,
actually, right. Yeah.
But I think the argument where I get stuck is like there's there are a ton of players in the 90s whose games would not have translated, even if they made an effort. Like
yeah,
I just said, Rodman,
yeah.
he didn't have skill, right? He had a niche that he was good at in
Yeah.
the era he was in, and he made a living out of it. And good for him. Like you can't argue the impact he had on the teams that he was a part of in the games that he played.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But like
nobody's arguing that either.
No one's going to argue with me, or no one's going to win argument that like a Will Purdue, Bill Cartwright, like those guys.
Yeah.
In today's era, even if they had been brought up right through the 2000s, we're going to somehow have that skill. Like
that's Cameron Krutwig. That's the dude
Aaron
in Indiana
Gray,
State.
right? Like
Aaron Gray. Yeah,
it's like
a good example.
Like that's I think right. Like these guys were just built different because the center was not supposed to be a skilled player, right? In that time period, it was supposed to be a big body that could take up space, back a guy down, and dunk it. So like. The only thing I will like, not argue too much, but like Jordan, Magic, I don't know. We can name a hand. Like we can name more. Barkley, maybe. I don't know. Like there's some guys that size was right, like athleticism was right, enough skill was right.
If they were trained,
like, if they were trained and brought up in the era, and they had the competition that these guys have. I would find it hard to believe that like they wouldn't have tuned their game to be different. So yeah, like I 100% agree. Yes, I'm wearing a 90s hat and like whatever because it's the only thing I have an attachment to. Because all my other teams that
we're destroying
terrible, right? Like, it is what it is. But like, no, you just can't like that article that I found. Like, when I was reading it, it was like. What I found the most interesting was the Curry piece. It was like comparing Steph Curry, Magic, and Oscar Robinson. And it was like, hey, Magic and Oscar may have been better like point guards in terms of assists, but Steph Curry was still like 3 standard deviations above the norm for that era. So he wasn't as good of a passer as Magic and Oscar if you try to level it all out. But he was still 3 times better than the average point guard of that era. Oh, and by the way, he had an effective field goal percentage that was technically would have been over 100%, which statistically becomes really weird. So you're saying this guy wasn't going to miss a shot in that era if you tried to take possessions and everything.
The math, he broke it. He broke the math.
It's basically saying like,
skin.
cool. He may have not passed the ball as much as these guys, but his field goal percentage still would have translated down. And he would have scored even more in that era. So like that to me was like the mind-boggling piece of all of that was
well,
to Titus's point exactly. These guys now are more skilled. You can't argue it.
Yeah, and I think
don't match.
It's an all-around, and I think my argument, I think you're right, Joey, and I think we'll forever have that debate of like, could the elite guys of that era translate if given the tools that these guys have? There's you can't answer that question. I think the thing that I look at, and I'll bring up some points here to kind of show my main argument is that I have with guys that are like attached to the 90s is that overall the players now are just, the 4 through 8 players are better now than the 4 through 8 players of that era. So one thing that came up to me in my game is that Pippen he essentially misses the whole game with a bad back. And this is a storyline I didn't remember, but I'm watching the game back and it was from the beginning was like he pulled his back. He might not be able to go tonight. He starts. He plays a couple of minutes. I think he has like one of the first shots of the game, a dunk, and he pulls his back on that dunk, and it basically immediately comes out. And one of the whole narratives is that he is not able to play. And then he comes in, and you see him hobbling. I mean, it's kind of a good way to put it, hobbling up the court, and he can't shoot. Like he smokes a layup because he can't lift his arms over his back. And to me, this is kind of where that mythology is built. A guy like my dad is going to watch that game and go, man, those guys played through everything. He had a bad back and he was out there grinding and still playing. My argument is that he could be out there because the other team couldn't exploit him. In today's game, it would just be, hey, Pippen, you're up here. You're going to be in the pick and roll now. And you're not going to be able to take a play off on defense. You're not going to be able to just sit on Hornacek or Stockton in the corner. And Stockton also had a bad back, by the way, in this game, which was pretty wild. that's the kind of thing where when these guys are on the sidelines now and the old heads are looking at him, like, look at this guy, he can't even play. He's not in the game. It's like, yeah, because if he was in the game, his team would be getting torched right now. You know what I mean? If he couldn't shoot, or if he's like Gobert, and you can just have a defender off him, you have to have him off. Where in the 90s, you could have Scottie Pippen out there with no back, with no ability to play, but he could just be
defense rules. Is what you're saying.
Defensive rules. Yeah, he could just stand out past the three-point line, and Jordan could still work in the paint. And then there was some other things I had here for that. I'm trying to see my notes. Oh, here's some fun ones that'll ruin your childhood, because it ruined mine. Some Jordan notes. All right, this was from the announcers in the game. One note that it was wild, and I could only imagine the narrative today, but they kept mentioning how much of a basketball brain Jordan had and how much like basketball IQ he had by resting on defense. They said, you can see him over here resting on D. He's saving all his energy for offense because he knows Scottie Pippen can't go. He's got to score. And like multiple times in the broadcast, Jordan is resting on D. Jordan is resting on D. And I could not get over that. I'm like,
LeBron gets.
Yeah. If Harden.
Oh, he's resting on D.
Yeah.
That's the knock.
Yeah, they legit said he's so smart. He's so smart of a player that he could do that. And then this was a really interesting one. So Jordan had a monster game. I believe he had 45 points total. I took notes when he had 37 points in the fourth quarter. He had 37 points on 13 for 32 shooting.
13 for 32?
Yeah, 13 for 32. I think
those are mellow numbers.
Okay. Yeah, he was at 8 for 8 from the line, though, at the time. So I think he was doing real good there. He was 2 for 7 in the fourth quarter. At that time, the team was 4 for 6, opposite of him. And the announcer said in a note, he is 3 for 14 in his last two fourth quarters. So that was Mr. Clutch. I mean, could you imagine if LeBron going 2 for 14?
But hey, in the last 20 seconds, those stats come up sometimes. Like, oh, what's their field goal percentage the last minute or whatever?
Now, and here's what
the
narrative would be is he hits that shot. He ends up hitting the game-winning shot, which is, incredible. And I told you guys before the pod started, I would kind of ruin that steal. So everybody knows this play. It's a famous play. He gets the strip on Malone, runs it back, hits the jumper, ices it, holds up the 6. It's a great moment. So that steal happens. And watching it with today's eyes, I finally understood what happened. So Malone gets the ball. He's in the post. Hornacek clears out. All right. And Jordan is supposed to follow him. It's because of the defensive rule. What were we talking about? What's it called?
The illegal defense.
He thinks Jordan is going to clear. He thinks he's going to have a one-on-one possession with, I think it was Rodman who was guarding him. But Jordan makes a heady play. He stays there. As soon as Malone goes into his move, Hornacek hadn't gotten far enough yet, so it was illegal defense. He makes that strip.
So it was legal defense?
It was legal defense at the time, but the reason why, it looks so, you can see Malone is just not expecting it. It looks like he's so surprised. You know what I mean? It's because he legit
follow Hornacek to
it legit isn't. He's thinking, Jordan's going to clear out. He's ready to make his post move one-on-one.
That illegal defense made no sense. I remember when I was a kid thinking that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I was 8 years old asking my dad, what is this? Why is this a thing? Me, what? I'm just kidding. But
yeah, LeBron over here, 8 years old.
I wouldn't be surprised if you were 8, being like, "Why are all the guys standing out there?"
It was,
son. No kid has ever asked that question before. The stats man was born.
The stats man was born. Oh, hold on. I had one other thing I was going to point out. Now I lost it. My notes are a jumble. But yeah, I mean, it was wild, man. To see that and the illegal defense and everything like that. And
the illegal defense, I think, is the biggest knock on the 90s.
Yeah.
Because some of the 3-point shooting. But that's fine. It's just if I can take anything back from the 90s, I wish they didn't have the illegal defense and we could play that era over. That'd be a lot more interesting. Like, let the players be who they are.
Yeah.
Just get rid of the illegal double teams. Let the guys double team. Double teaming has a negative in and of itself. We don't need to have a foul on it because of it. So
when they got double teamed, they lost the ball, man. That was the other thing. Those guys,
they just weren't good enough.
They just weren't good enough. You know what I mean?
They needed it.
They needed that illegal defense. But yeah, I think overall I agree with this trend. I think we done with the 90s. I'm done. I'm not even gonna argue with people anymore. Like, no, you guys just aren't watching because these guys today, like Joey's saying, time machine. You brought him up. Yes, it would be a cakewalk. But sure, you want to tell me Jordan would be great now if he came up with the training? I believe it.
I'd be interested if there's a better player you can say that couldn't play in today's NBA than Dennis Rodman, because that's probably the best player.
So I actually thought nobody on the Jazz would play today. That was my other hot take. Is that absolutely nobody on the Jazz would play? No, Malone is
Stockton Malone.
Man. No, Stockton would not play at all.
Oh man,
Stockton is a 0. There's no chance in hell Stockton would.
Well, you're also watching 98 Stockton. He was good in the
early
90s
I guess
too.
Maybe he's just so short. He's like 5'10", man.
I don't think that's it. But
he's listed at 6, maybe 6.
I mean, could you imagine Westbrook? Like he has Stockton on him? Come on, bro.
We'll see. He'd be smart because he'd be taking plays off on defense.
Yeah, he would be using his brain.
Right. He'd be saving his energy for those offensive assists.
To get Malone the ball, to pass Malone the ball.
Malone was built for the 90s, though, too, right?
Yeah, Malone's a classic 90s player. Yeah. He had no moves.
One guy you brought up in your piece was Rudy. You said,
Rudy Gobert.
When you're like, when you could take Rudy out of games. And I was thinking, like, Rudy in the 90s might have averaged like 40 points a game.
Oh, yeah. He would have been a beast in the 90s. Yeah.
Right? Like, nobody was that size with that length. Like, and with like that touch around the rim where you had a bigger guy behind you. Okay, cool. I can't back you down. It's fine. I'll just turn around and throw a floater up because my arm is like 6 inches longer than you. Like, it's just different. Like, if we laugh about Rudy getting like run off the floor now, but in that period, the dude would have been he would have been Victor Wembanyama of the 90s.
right.
Because I think that's what's funny too is everybody says like the big man is dead. I'm like, dude, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, put all those guys in the 90s. Are you kidding me? Face up threes.
Giannis is interesting. That would have been an interesting. That'd be an interesting one to plop into the 90s. Because like he'd have to run through some pretty stout guys. I don't know. I'm actually curious about that. Like that one kind of made me think. Like, because I mean, some of those centers were some big bodies. I mean, they were just like they weren't skilled, but they were
they're big guys,
solid dudes. That like, and Giannis is used to just running through guys, right? And everybody kind of gets out of his way, or he's bigger than most people, stronger. But like, at some point, weight becomes a factor. Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. He probably still would have been fine, but
I think he'd been fine. But I wonder if he would have been as dominant.
No, I don't think he would have been as dominant. I think he's a good example of someone who would not have been as dominant.
Oh, see, I think he'd be super dominant. Yeah, I think he'd be super dominant because in an era where you didn't have to have the 3, so he doesn't have to stretch. Like he doesn't have to worry about taking. He takes so many threes now because he feels like he has to.
I just think, I'm gonna watch Giannis over the next few weeks because he does a lot of like the no defensive 3 seconds thing. Like I wonder if he benefits a lot from that.
Yeah, like just being able to back a guy down with nobody else on him. It's just him and the one defender.
Okay, Giannis doesn't really have like post moves though.
Neither of those guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he would just do that back down. He's built for the 90s more than anybody.
That one's tough. I feel like he's not.
I think he'd be an all-star, perennial all-star.
I think he'd be fine.
Would he be an MVP? I don't know.
That seems tough.
I think he'd get like 6 chips. That's tough. Well, it was a fun argument for sure. Should we continue to watch more 90s games and see?
No,
I kind of want to. I kind of want to sample some more. I kind of want to sample more.
Feel free, guys. But we got a lot of basketball. The season ends in less than a month here.
Let's start playoffs.
It's good off-season homework.
Yeah, off-season. Well, my off-season.
I did want to. I'll talk off pod about what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But,
me too.
I do have an up. I think we're good on the 90s for now.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah,
I want to give an update on our second half bet.
Yeah, let's do it.
Titus, you have 69 wins.
Nice.
Very nice.
68. Nice. And then I have 68, and then Joey has 67.
Ooh.
So right in line.
It's looking like the Western Conference over there.
My top, speaking of the West, I have 43. No, let's not do that. Nuggets for me, 12 wins, my top team.
Took the Nuggets.
Joey Magic have 11.
Ooh, they've been on a run.
And then Titus with the Celtics at 11 as well. So
it's got to drop off at some point, man. At
some point it will. Yeah,
they got to rest some guys. It's got to happen.
The Nuggets are going for the number 1 seed too. So
the Magic, though, that's the darling.
Yeah,
right now that's the
Magic,
darling.
man.
Late draft. That's a Giannis pick. That's a Giannis Curry pick.
My Heat are at 7. It's not looking as great right now.
How are my Pistons doing?
To say who's the worst?
Oh, your Pistons have 4.
Oh,
can you guys guess the worst?
It's got to be the
Who's got 2 of them?
Wizards.
Memphis?
The Wizards,
The Wizards.
followed by the Jazz.
Oh,
Ooh.
And then I have the Grizzlies, but that was my last
Grizzlies.
pick. I didn't have a choice.
yeah. What do you?
I think the
Timberwolves
Wizards
only have 8.
I think the Wizards last, right?
Got some tough losses lately.
Yeah, tough loss.
You probably. Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't expect them to lose
Okay,
Cat, so
Yeah, it's tough.
thanks a lot,
Tough.
Joey.
Whatever, man. Hey, my jinx is not true because the Bulls broke the triple-double streak. So
The 30-point triple-double streak.
whatever, it ended. They knew what they were doing. They ended it.
Let's let them score so much that they have to rest Luka in the 4th quarter,
Damn straight.
so he won't get 30. It's just galaxy brain, man. They play.
Hey, if you can't be great, just ruin people's streaks. Okay, do your thing.
I love it. Joey's just he's in a state. He's in the late season state right now. It's all right. We're getting a playing game, Joey. We'll talk offline. I got the dates set up, so
All right.
we gotta start talking about it. Anything else for us tonight, boys? March
We're done
Madness
with
this
the
weekend.
90s.
You guys locking in?
I got some
We're done with
stuff,
the 90s.
but we'll talk.
I got a
All right.
bracket.
We'll talk.
We'll
next
talk off
week.
pod and we'll talk next week. Well, that is it for us tonight. Follow us on social media at the Box Out Boys. Slide in those DMs. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube and Spotify. Very much appreciate that. So until next time, a box out.